Last year, when Neil Druckmann took the stage at Summer Games Fest and showed us this concept art for the upcoming Last of Us standalone multiplayer game, he made one thing clear.
And you're going to see a lot more of this game come next year.
And again, at the beginning of the year, this promise was reiterated, with all signs seeming to point towards the 10-year anniversary of The Last of Us as a key date that we will get more news. But instead, we were met with these leaks and news of a delay, coupled with complete silence from Naughty Dog. And so it's become a big question. Will we still be hearing about this game this year? Dr. Pooplove here, and today I want to talk about when we can expect to hear about Factions 2 again, given all the latest news. And stick around until the end because I do think there are maybe some interesting things happening in the background. And if you stick around until the very end, we're going to be connecting some crazy dots in the unhinged conspiracy zone. Let's get right into it. So with this news coming out that Bungie's internal review over The Last of Us Factions 2 was met with concern and ended up causing delays, things have been much harder to predict. By all accounts, Naughty Dog was actually gearing up to show us something at the PlayStation Showcase back in May, but this review happened and things got pulled. But we do have proof. Naughty Dog themselves said, and it's been backed up by other devs, that this game is not canceled. But we don't really know how far this delay has set things back. And we don't have a realistic idea of what a good new timeline should be as to when we can expect to hear things. We don't know whether they're planning to keep their promise about hearing about this game this year. Now, considering that they were planning to show it at the showcase, you have to imagine that they have a trailer that's ready to go. And so it's possible that they decide to show it this year, unless perhaps that trailer has some key details that need to change as a result of this delay. But releasing it would be a good way to bring the hype back after such bad news has made a lot of fans just down. But as we know, Naughty Dog doesn't really like to make announcements too early because it has added negative pressure to the development of their games in the past. So it's possible that they just say nothing until this game gets back on track. Although I do think it would be super weird after they started this cadence of talking a little bit about Factions 2 a couple times a year. And it also would be honestly a bit of a slap in the face to the hardcore multiplayer fans who have been patiently waiting for this next game. I know we're small in number, but growing and maintaining good relationships with the hardcore fans is a key building block to making a good live service game, at least according to Bungie, who holds a lot of weight now at Sony. I mean, just look at Bungie's latest actions to address all the negativity surrounding their state of the game, which didn't really seem to address a lot of PvP concerns. They seem to be taking steps to address those concerns. And Naughty Dog, you have to start doing this sometime. And so if Naughty Dog does decide to make the right decision to talk and say something and keep their promise for revealing something this year, we really have three chances. One is this rumored second PlayStation Showcase, which Colin Moriarty and others have said is happening. But even if we do get a PlayStation Showcase, that doesn't necessarily mean that Factions is going to show up. Of course, there's always The Last of Us Day. Now, we've never really had any major updates on this day, and the nods they have given to the multiplayer haven't been consistent year to year. Of course, in 2019, they made a statement saying that we can still expect the multiplayer, and in 2021, they did give a little hint to look at their job postings, and so I think the best hope for this year's The Last of Us Day is that we just get some sort of assurances, something to kind of let us know that this game is still on track. But again, I thought they would say something on the 10-year anniversary, and Naughty Dog unfortunately stayed silent. So I don't have a whole lot of faith that they're planning to do anything here. Of course, then there's also the Game Awards, which usually I don't put a lot of faith in, but perhaps this is the more likely of all options this year, as this would still satisfy that 2023 promise, but it also gives Naughty Dog some time to get their ducks in a row. But more likely, in my honest opinion, and some may be sad to hear this, but my bet is that their plans for this year have now been postponed to next year, and that we will probably have to wait for a 2024 showcase or something like that in order to get that big reveal. I really hope I'm wrong. I really do. But it's just hard to put faith in Naughty Dog at this point. And so I'm just going to try my best and try my hardest not to clown out this time. But just because we might not hear anything this year doesn't mean we should lose hope for this game. Look, first of all, remember that Naughty Dog's past 3 games have all had development issues. Amy Hennig was replaced for Uncharted 4 and they had to redo the story. And crunch was a big problem for The Last of Us Part 2. It seemed like they wanted to make this huge open world and then they had to reduce the scope. And with The Last of Us Part 1, it wasn't even being worked on by Naughty Dog, and probably because it wasn't in good shape, they ended up having to take it over. But those games all came out, and they all delivered, and so I don't think we have any reason to doubt that Factions 2 will be any different. So this delay and this rescoping, it's kind of just par for the course at this point with Naughty Dog. But there have been a few other positive signs. This tweet from Naughty Dog Jobs is advertising jobs that I don't think are actually for the multiplayer, but they do use the multiplayer concept art, which I think gives a little ray of hope. I mean, it would just be cruel and plain dumb to use that art and remind fans about this game if it was canceled. But also there's been some interesting movements going on around the industry. Something else notable that happened, and credit to Vagrant Coyote for noticing this, but it seems that Naughty Dog has filled 2 key financial positions. And these are jobs that I talked about in the past that showed up after we heard news of the delay. And they were basically set up to track KPIs, track revenue, and other data metrics at the studio, as well as be able to discuss how Naughty Dog and their games are doing with Sony leadership. And I think that these 2 financial positions were basically direct responses to Bungie's concerns. In their GDC talk, where they talk about what makes a good live service, they talk about data and trying to hit consistent milestones and whatnot. And so I think these roles are kind of answers to that. Naughty Dog is full of artists and creative visionaries. And so I think this is in part a way to have some of the number crunching data heads who are looking at the bottom line join their studio and, more importantly, become a part of their studio culture so that ultimately they are advocates for Naughty Dog instead of corporate overlords that serve as adversaries, in theory at least. And so anyways, these roles have been filled, it seems, as they're no longer listed. And actually one of these roles may be this guy who came over from Microsoft, as he does have the title of finance manager, which was listed on Naughty Dog Jobs and delisted around the same time we saw this, except this title also delineates live service, which basically, if this is the same guy working at Naughty Dog, then yes, he was likely hired for Factions 2. But even if this isn't him, these finance manager roles seem to be popping up as a necessity for live services. And ultimately, hopefully, this all just means that with these hires, Naughty Dog can get Factions back on track. But there is a little bit more, and yeah, we have already started wading into the conspiracy waters, but it's time to get a little unhinged and make some wild connections. So take the following with a huge grain of salt. Okay, so in the wake of Microsoft's acquisition of Activision Blizzard King, it may be that PlayStation is trying to poach key Call of Duty talent and bring them over to help them with their live services. Like, we can see from Zubitech that this guy, Pat Dwyer, formerly a director at Treyarch and a 15-year-long employee, now works for PlayStation. And David Vonderhaar recently put out a note saying that he was leaving Treyarch after 18 years for an undisclosed role, and this could actually be PlayStation also. And look, it's not so far-fetched an idea that PlayStation may be trying to poach Call of Duty talent, but ZL1 on the Factions Discord pointed out that Treyarch's headquarters is located very close to Naughty Dog. Both studios are located in Santa Monica, California, and there aren't really a lot of big studios that are working on live services in Santa Monica. Although, while I was editing this, news just came out that Rockstar is setting up a new studio in Santa Monica as well, called Rockstar LA. So that could be another option now, especially if this has to do with GTA Online. And it's a reason why you should take this conspiracy with a grain of salt. Regardless though, it does make sense that PlayStation, especially with their increasing budget for live service games, might try to spend some of that bringing people over from Treyarch to help Naughty Dog develop their live service factions game, especially considering they are just down the street. Now, I know we don't really want factions to be like Call of Duty, but having some of that experience certainly could help get this game over the finish line and out. But of course, this is all unfounded at the moment. People work remote. You never know. We really don't have enough proof to definitively say this. And so we'll just kind of have to wait to see if this does end up being the case. But one thing is for sure, and that is that things are happening behind the scenes. And we definitely have some events with some potential coming up that hopefully at least will make the picture a little bit clearer, at least as to where this project actually is at. And even if we don't get to hear about our beloved factions this year with the announcement and all the things that were promised, I do believe that Naughty Dog is looking to rise to the occasion and make some changes in order to deliver the overall promise of factions that we will still get this game. But that's not all that's changing at Naughty Dog. In fact, there are a lot of changes happening over there right now, and this video goes over all of that, so you should check it out. But otherwise, so long, Pooper Troopers.